Any others?
Good evening. So tonight is Chav Daled Tevis. Today we're a little about Rebbe, and we have the honor to have a special shir on the topic of the Alter Rebbe, the Siddur Alter Rebbe, from Rabbi Roness. After the shir will be Meidav, after Meidav will be a Fabrengen. After Meidav will be a Fabrengen with Rabbi Roness and Rabbi Levitin upstairs.
So that the Siddur of the Alter Rebbe and the Alter Rebbe's Nusach was a very significant Chiddush from the Alter Rebbe, and it's known that there was a commotion about it. To the extent that one of the tainas that was mentioned when it came to Yutis Kislev, the rest of the Alter Rebbe, one of the tainas was that he made a new Nusach. And when it was released as well, it was brought by mistake to Masnag's house. When the Masnag said, "You're not leaving here until you abolish the new changes that you made to your Siddur." Siddur realized that the Alter Rebbe was brought to the wrong house, so they came downstairs and they hear Masnag screaming at the Alter Rebbe, "You don't like the Nusach of the Kaddish? You only like is this new Nusach of Nagdisha?" Now, where exactly did this Nusach come from? What was the Chiddush of that? And what was the Alter Rebbe Machadish? The Alter Rebbe obviously didn't change anything from the Anshik Knesset Agdela. It wasn't that the Chom made one Nusach and the Alter Rebbe made a new Nusach. Well, any old sefer that isn't written down, copied letter by letter, is going to have different versions. So you're going to have that if there's Mishnayos, Mishnayos is memorized, a person makes a little bit of a mistake, so he might make a mistake with a name. Instead of saying Elazar, you could say Eliezer. The same thing as someone's copying something over. So you make a small mistake with a word here or there. So you think maybe the Siddur is the same story. In the Kitzvei Arizal says it's something a little different over here. The Arizal says a chiddush when it comes to Neschois. Says this that you find there's different Neschois between Ashkenazim and between Sfardim. You find there's different Neschois between Ashkenazim and Sfardim. Those who live in Italy and those who live in other places, and they have different minhagim. It's because there is 12 sha'arim, there's 12 gates. And just like in the Beis HaMikdash, it says there were 12 gates. So in Shemayim there's also 12 gates, Keneged the 12 shvatim. And each shevet goes in through his gate. So there's 12 different, and how does it work with davening? There's different nusachos, and every shevet had his nusach atfilah. And therefore, a person should be careful to daven with his nusach, because if he doesn't know his if he doesn't know his sheish nafshei, so then there's a sharakel, and this is what, and the Mesitzur Magid discusses this a little more by Arichos, and he says, and the Mesitzur Magid explains that there was a 13th gate in the Beis HaMikdash, and the same thing is also in Shemayim, there's a 13th gate. This 13th gate is called the Shara Kales, the general gate. So every single person who doesn't know his shevet, or let's say he's a ger and he doesn't have a shevet, so the best way for him to daven would be by going through this Shara Kale, this nusach, that's the inclusive nusach. So you're going to ask the question, so why do we need 12 nuschos? Or 13 nuschos? Let there be one nusach, a Shara Kale. If it works for everyone, why do I need to have individual nuschos? He says, of course, there would be an advantage of each person if he would daven the nusach of his shevet. So a person knows his shevet's nusach very well, daven with the nusach of your shevet. But the facts are that we don't know the nusach of our shevet, and most people don't know what shevet they're from altogether. Therefore, for such a person, he's not a baki, he doesn't know which proper nusach. Daven with the shara kelo, daven with which nusach is the shara kelo, the nusach of the Arizal. So you would think it's very simple. So everyone's going to now daven with the nusach of the Arizal, and that's it. However, the Arizal didn't exactly write down a siddur. You're thinking, when we say nusach Arizal, it means that there was different nuschos. Arizal sat down and he wrote a siddur, which is a siddur of nusach Arizal, and everyone should take that siddur and daven with that. The Arizal didn't write, and he didn't say what to say. he taught Kabbalah, and according to what he taught, you were able to understand what the Arizal feels is mukhrach, what are the main points which every single person should say. And according to this, his Talmidim wrote a Siddur, or established which parts of davening to say in a way that would work would follow Shittas Arizal. Following this, in the next generations, you had different people who typed up Siddurim, which were called Siddur Arizal. You had quite a number of different ones, and there were different versions of them. Some of them focused much more on the Kavanas. There was explanations according to Kabbalah. So what ended up happening was they focused more on the Kavanas. The Nusach got lost. Sometimes those who were copying them over, the printers, didn't do such an accurate job. And the mistakes crept in. Some of these Siddurim were even closer to Nusach Ashkenaz than the Nusach Sfard. And the Siddur of the Shalah was mostly Nusach Ashkenaz with a few things that he changed. And with that, you had several different Siddurim. So now comes based on this. Now, when came the time to Alter Rebbe, you wanted to have a Nusach Arizal. Now you don't know exactly what to say. I'm going to daven with Nusach Arizal. Nusach Arizal could be one of many different nusois. So now the Alter Rebbe had to go and start sifting to figure out what is the proper Nusach Arizal, and that is what the Alter Rebbe was masakin. How exactly do you do that? The Alter Rebbe is hundreds of years after the Arizal. So how exactly is he going to figure out? He doesn't have a Ksav Yad Ari telling him what to write. What is he doing? What is he going to do? First thing is, in order to understand the Kisei Arizal, you have to be a great Chacham in Kabbalah and a great Chacham in the writings of the Arizal. Not anyone could just go to the Arizal and see the Arizal explains a certain part of davening, must mean I should say that. The Arizal sometimes explains parts of davening that he would have done. The Arizal explained different things, but from what he said, if you understand the Chachmas Arizal properly, we were able to figure out which parts are mukhrach, and which parts was he saying that's for everyone, and which things he was explaining that's a proper nusach for someone who that's his right sherish and neshama. So you need a chacham like the Alter Rebbe to figure that out. In Beis Rebbe it says that the Alter Rebbe sifted through 60 different Siddurim, comparing them, until he was able to find what was the right nusach, in order to clean them from all the typing mistakes and errors that crept over the generations in different Siddurim that were Arizal. He had 60 different versions of Siddur Arizal. Another point is, according to Kisvei Arizal, there's certain numbers and certain brachas. We know that when it comes to Kaddish of Ne'ilah, we say Le'ela, Ula Ela, Mikol Brachasa V'Shirasa. We added the word Ula Ela. Now you have an extra word in Kaddish. But there's supposed to be a certain number of words in this Kaddish. So according to this, you have to take out a word. So the word Mikol you changed to Mikol. Now it became one word. So I added a word, I have to take out a word. So that was one of the things that the Alter Rebbe used in order to mevayer his nusach. For example, just to give a couple of other examples of brachas, which is a certain number of names of words. The first bracha of Shemona Esrei has 42 words. It's in Shara Kelo. It mentions that if you look at the first letter of the bracha, such as Baruch as a base. The last letter of Ram finishes with Mem. Sigmati are 42, and that's the amount of words that there are in the bracha of Magen Avraham. And the same thing is, and it's also connected to the Shemab, which is the gematria of one of the names of Hashem. The way it's written in a certain way, it will come at the 42. So you're going to have to make sure it's going to fit with that way. And there's a chuvah from the Alter Rebbe where he clearly mentions this. He says that from Mikamecha until Gal Yisrael, there's supposed to be 41 words. He says it's not possible to do this if you're going to have the Tzur Yisrael. Other Nusachos, they say Tzur, they add in Tzur Yisrael. He says, the Alter Rebbe says you're going to have to take out Tzur Yisrael. If not, you're not going to end up with the proper amount of words, which it says in Mishnah Chasudim. Well, according to what it says according to what it says in Kisvei Arizal, I'm going to have to take out these words. And he explains also why it wouldn't be relevant to that bracha. Then the next TA says that we don't say Oyer Chodesh. In other Nuschos they say at the end of Yitzchok they say Oyer Chodesh al Tzi and Tor. We don't say it, and the Alter Rebbe says it doesn't fit with what it says in Kisvei Arizal. The Alter Rebbe goes through a number of other words which he says it doesn't fit with the amount of words. The Alter Rebbe also was mevar which parts are explained in the Pesachim that you have to say. It has to fit with halacha as well. So by examining what it says in the Pesachim and what it says in Kisvei Arizal, and comparing different studim, the Alter Rebbe was able to establish the right nusach. And then after that, the Alter Rebbe Siddur was published. In the beginning, the Alter Rebbe, you had the Siddur which was published in the Alter Rebbe's lifetime, and later the Mittler Rebbe. Then later, the Rebbe's Alter Zayda published the Siddur, called Siddur Teira, which is the basis of all the later Siddurim. And one of the important Eisafas which were added in the Siddur was a sefer called Sha'ar HaKeil. In Sha'ar HaKeil, he explains many parts of davening why the Alter Rebbe chose specifically this nusach. Why how it fits, why according to Allah or according to Kabbalah, you have to choose specifically this nusach. Now going back to what we said about Sha'ar HaKeil. This concept of Sha'ar HaKeil was a bit of a commotion, because now you're saying one nusach has a milo over all the nuschos, and this will make an afkimina in a number of inyanim and halacha. One inyan is going to be, now you're going to say that everyone should start switching nuschos. There would be an issue here, just changing from what your parents did. Maybe possibly there would be a problem with kibbut of aim. Another question is, what now that we're having different people and shul having different nuschos, could I have a chazan going to the davening one nusach and the kehillah davening a different nusach? What about an entire shul? A shul that was established in one nusach. Now we decide we're going to switch to another nusach. Or even if the person's not a chazan, within the same shul, can you have some people davening one nusach, some people davening another? You would have this question also with nusach start. You're going to have a shul, some people davening nusach start, some people davening nusach ashkenaz. There's an isser and teretz, it's leis gated.
It wasn't common that you had two people in the same shul davening. Every kid had their nusach, and that was it.
So you have
all of a sudden people start choosing nusach. You live in Ashkenaz and the davening nusach start. That didn't exist until later.
So you have a few questions. You have one question is, what about in general? If Ashkenazi is now going to go and travel to another country and daven a Sephardi shul, so they have to daven to a different nusach. And even if you want to say that there is an issue and he shouldn't daven, he has to daven the same nusach as the whole shul, or at least if he's chazan he should. Are you going to say now there's an afkimina if it's nusach harizal? You might say it depends. If he's nusach harizal, he can be chazan for any kehillah because nusach harizal works for everyone. If he's having nusach sfard, he can't be chazan for nusach harishal because his nusach doesn't have the mile of nusach harizal. So, in general, do you have an issue of having two nuschos? And now I have a greater issue. Do I say that one nusach has a mile over another when it comes to nyanim of halacha? There was a lot of ink spilled on this sugya. So, from the first shuvas I mentioned is the Chasam Sefer. The people wrote the Chasam Sefer, that was Chassidim, and they say their nusach has a mile over all the nuschos. And when you come to their shul, you need to daven nusach hari. They go to another shul, they can be chazan if they're davening nusach hari, they're kehil daven something else. Doesn't make a difference. Nusach hari is better. This is true. Now, and they said this is quoted in the Sefer Lakutei Amorim. Lakutei Amorim here is referring to the Sefer Maggid of Rabbi Yaakov of the Mezritch Maggid. The Chasam Sefer responds by saying that we don't have new chedushim that came after a time of Gemara. We don't have to accept. And he says this Sefer called Lakutei Amorim, I don't have it in my kehillah. And I learned Shas and Pesachim, I don't have the Sefer. So, however, I don't understand what it's saying over here. He says, we always had the word Sfardim and Ashkenazim with two different nuschos. Amongst them you had Kohanim, you had Kohanim, Levim, many of them were having the same nusach. It doesn't make sense, if you're going to say it was by Shvatim, they shouldn't be having the same nusach. And already in the times of the Gemara, we have such a concept that they were davening the same nusach. And he brings a story in Gemara from it. A story in Gemara. The story in Gemara is there was a tainus. They made a tainus because there wasn't rain. So they had to send the shliach tzibur to daven. So it says that there was a meister Rebbe Eliezer, Shiyar Lufnei Ateva. Rebbe Eliezer was chazan. But Omar Esr v'arba brachas. When he was chazan, he said 24 brachas. The 24 brachas of that you say on a fast day. Loinana, he wasn't answered. Yard Rabbi Kiva Achrov. After Rabbi Kiva was chazan. And he said to Hashem a simple tefillah. He says, Avinu Malkeinu ein lanu melech alata. We have no king aside from you. Avinu Malkeinu laman charachim aleinu. For your sake, have mercy on us. For your the Bishamim rain came down. So have Meradan Rabbanim. So the Rabbanim started to say, seems like Rebbe Eliezer is not such a big tzaddik like Rebbe Kiva. Rebbe Eliezer davens to Hashem for rain. Hashem doesn't send rain. Rebbe Kiva goes to the but the rain comes pouring down. Yatsa Baskel, a voice came from Shemayim and says, it's not because this one's greater than that one. With my he was known to be very forgiving, extra forgiving, and because of that schus, he has a ma'ila, but not that Eliezer is not a tzaddik. Eliezer is a tzaddik. Rebbe Kiva has this special schus. Now, based on this, the Chassam Sefer has a kash. Chassam Sefer says Rebbe Kiva is a son of Gideon. So Rebbe Kiva's parents were Gideon. He obviously didn't come from Shevet Levi. He must have davened a nusach of Shara Kidul. Someone who doesn't know what Shevet he's from, davened Shara Kidul. Rebbe Eliezer is from Shevet Levi. If Rebbe Eliezer is from Shevet Levi, he has different nusach. How do you have it? One's being chazan for the other. They're davening together. They have different nuschois. They're saying a different davening. Maybe they both have to be chazan. But they should have two different minyanim. One can't be chazan according to this one. They're saying a different tefillah. So must be there's no such thing as different nuschois. Everyone has the same nusach. Then he has let's first address before continue this after the tshuva of Chassam Sefer there was the same question of the mind of one over the other was addressed to the Divrei Chaim Tzams, and he wrote a tshuva in which he refutes the entire tshuva of the Chassam Sefer. Later, the Man Amshik has an issue. It sounds like his Rebbe of some Sefer saying something without any basis, and he tries to answer what the Chassam Sefer says. And then later, the Minchas Elazar, the Mooncatcher, the Chassid, goes and refutes the tshuva of the Man Amshik, and it goes back and forth with the different tshuvas going back and forth. So I'm just going. Let's first address the this taina of this that Chassam Sefer says that brings the Gemara says b'chlal the Chassam Sefer should know that it's not the Mezritcher Magid made something up. The Mezritcher Magid said things based on Kisvei Arizal, which is something which is brought by all the Gedolei Adar, and this in having this and the Torah of Reb Chaim Vital was accepted by the Beis Yosef and the Rebbe and the Al Shech and the Taz and the Shach and Magen Avraham, which we rely on their words when it comes to Hol Nyanim V'Halacha. So Chassam Sefer can't come now and start coming with tainus on the words of the Mezritcher Magid. He's being based on the Reb Chaim Vital and the Rebbe Arizal. And in the Tshuva of the Minchas Elazar, he says, B'chlal, if the Chassam Sefer would have known who L'Kutei Amarim was, that L'Kutei Amarim was Mezritcher Magid, he wouldn't have argued with the tshuva. He definitely wouldn't have. He wouldn't have came with complaints on what it says in L'Kutei Amarim, because the Chassam Sefer, his Rebbe was a Talmud of Nosson Adler and the Aflo. The Aflo, Pinchas Sarvitz, who was the Rebbe of Frankfurt, was a Talmud of the Mezritcher Magid. So if the Chassam Sofer would have known that this came from the Rebbe of his Rebbe, he wouldn't have argued against it.
How do we know the Siddur?
The Chassam Sofer writes clearly, the Sefer L'Kutei Amorim is Leinim Tzavik Yelosenu. So I don't have the Sefer. He just says, this that you're quoting to me in his name, it doesn't seem to fit with the Gemara.
Is that an actual way?
It is Rebbe, according to what it says in Menachos Lazar, it sounds like he didn't know about it. Now going to the time Chassam Sofer had on the words of the Gemara, that there's a Sharkel doesn't fit with what the story from the story of Mesachos Tainis. He says, B'chlal, the differences between Nusach Sfard and Nusach Ashkenaz is not in Yonim that make a difference in being Yates davening or not. Whether Ha'idu comes before Baruch Shalom or comes after. Well, it's in Charles Chuv Chassam Sofer is two Chuv. It's in Erech Chaim and Tazayin and Yudzayin. So it's this Indian it doesn't make a difference in being Yates. We're not sending a shliach over here that he has to be Yates and say the same words as me. But b'chlal, the chazan, you could be Yates if you have a chazan that says different words. What's going to be the differences? A word here and a word there. And b'chlal, it doesn't even. What was Rebbe Kiva's tefillah over here? Rebbe Kiva came and he said a tefillah. Avinu malkeinu, racham aleinu. He comes down to Hashem. Where do you find that we hear different nuschos? Next, he says, you're saying that Rebbe Eliezer was a Levi. Where did you get this that Rebbe Eliezer was a Levi? If you're going to say Rebbe Eliezer must be a Levi because we found in Medrash that Moshe Rabbeinu davened that Rebbe Eliezer should be from his descendants. Okay? Because Rebbe Eliezer is a descendant from Rebbe Eliezer's mother. Where did this Yisayid come from, this Rebbe Eliezer is a Levi? So he says he doesn't understand this.
Who's saying this?
The V'chaim. The V'chaim asks these questions on Chassam Sofer. As far as the Pepel, what the
But you can't be a gay.
What?
The other can't be a gay.
Rebbe Eliezer can't be a guy. Rebbe Eliezer doesn't know what Shevet he's from. It could, or if he does know which, even if he does know, how do you know he's not from a ger? Where did you establish? Well, but it doesn't. That's the thing. How do you know he's from Beis Halevi just because he came from Asia?
Where is this liver at?
In Chelik Beis Erech Chaim Siman Ches. It goes. There's a Chelik Alpha Erech Chaim and a Chelik Beis. The Chelik Beis Erech Chaim Siman Ches. Now further in the Tshuva of the Chassam Sofer, he says that B'chlal Ma'id Eves, meaning both from Nosna Adler and Afla, would daven Nusach Sfard, and the Kehil daven Nusach Ashkenaz. So there's no problem of a Chaz who davens different Nusach. But it could be the opposite way also. The Chaz could daven Nusach Ashkenaz with the Kehil daven Nusach Sfard. So why did they switch to Nusach Sfard? If like the Chassam Sofer saying that there's no mile of one Nusach over the other, why are suddenly all of Kubalim switching to Nusach Sfard? Well, that was Ashkenaz and have the same Kavanas of Arizal. Because Arizal, when he taught his Kavanas, he taught them according to Nusach Sfard. Because Chassam Sofer says that Arizal was a Sephardi. So when he was organizing his Kavanas and teaching his Kavanas, he taught them according to the way he davened. Now, someone who wants to daven with the Kavanas of Arizal is going to have a very difficult time trying to figure out how to match it with his Ashkenaz Siddur. So anyone who wants to daven with the Kavanas of Arizal, start davening Nusach Sfard, but not because the words are any better. There were different versions, and for those davening with his Kavanas, that way it was easier. The Minchas Elazar takes his view with this, and he says, B'chlal, where did you get this from that Arizal was a Sephardi? The truth is the opposite. That Arizal was Ashkenazi. He brings proofs. He says Arizal. What was Arizal's name? Besides we know him as Arizal. As I heard one person once saying, Arizal is Chaneinu Levracha. His name was Yitzchok Luria. Luria was the name of the Rashal, who was the Rav in Krakow. It was a Shiva in Krakow. It was Ashkenazi. The Yizal was from his descendants. He was Ashkenazi, and it's written clearly by the Chidah. And the Chida lived closer to the times of the Arizal than we do, and he probably knew a little more about the Arizal, and he was known to be a great Chaker. And if he writes this, Pashtus, that he was Ashkenazi, Pashtus, he was Ashkenazi. And there were times that, and he was telling me he davened Nusach Sfarad anyway. The opposite. There were times he went specifically to Nusach Ashkenaz Shul because he wanted to say certain piyutim which are only said in Nusach Ashkenaz Shuls. Now if you look through his Nusach, his Nusach is not the Nusach of the Sfarad. Within his Nusach, he's taken some parts from the Nusach of Ashkenazim, some things from the Nusach of the Sfaradim. So you see clearly, he didn't just have a Nusach Sfarad that he's davening anyway, and because he's davening anyway, so he put the Kavanas to that. He clearly went and took some things from here and some things from there. So this time that he was a Sephardi, and therefore he put it anyway, doesn't begin. Rather, for sure, it's because there was a Mailan specifically having this nusach over here. And he was mavar. What's the proper nusach to say? Now both the Minchas Elazar as well as in the Rebbe's letters, the Rebbe's letters explains about Yitzchok that this of Leisus Kedu, where we don't follow the shit that's Leisus Kedu. Those who want to say Leisus Kedu means you shouldn't make a good. So you come to New Kehila, so I need to daven whatever the shul is davening. So Sfaradi goes to Ashkenaz shul, he needs to daven as Ashkenaz, and Ashkenazi goes to Sfaradi shul, he needs to daven as Sfaradi. The Minchas Elazar says we definitely don't follow this way, and it's not a kasha of Leisus Kedu, and the same thing is also with the Inya of Al Tish Simecha.
Why is not the issue of Leisus Kedu?
He explains more in the Al Tish Simecha. He based himself on other inyanim which come from that result. And correctly says that when it comes to tefillin, we say that, I think if I'm correct, Yosef mentions this, that now that we know the Maimer Rebbe that you don't put on tefillin on Chol, even if your parent is a person can follow this Maimer Rebbe, even when he goes to the show, we're not going to say Leisus Kedu, it's important Peskin. The same thing is also when it comes to here. I'm going to follow Shittim Kabbalah here as well. So I'm not going to have this issue of Al Tish Simecha and Leisus Kedu. There were those who wrote to the Rebbe about it, and about this, and am I able to switch from my parents to one thing? The Alter Rebbe said that in the times of the Alter Rebbe, there were hundreds of people on Full Kehillas that switched from one nusach to another. And between them there were great Talmidei Chachamim, Ye'enim and Rabbanim that switched to nusach Arizal. So and obviously they knew the halachas, and they knew that if they switched, they obviously fits with halacha. Although there is some Peskim who disagree with it. Before I get to this, there's the maskana of the Chassidish Peskim, which we quoted. And maskana is that they say that a person could switch from Nusach Ashkenaz to Nusach Hari, because Nusach Hari has a mile. From Nusach Hari to Nusach Ashkenaz, you can't switch. Once you switch, you can't switch back. Between the Veltische Peskim, there's those who don't disagree with that. So when Moshe Feinstein writes that we started with all of those who are davening Nusach Hari originally davening Nusach Ashkenaz, so there's obviously no problem if they're just switching back. But if you look through what the Magid, the Svara of the Magid over here, there's a Maila, so it seems like what the Chassidish Peskim right, that you could switch to Nusach Hari, you shouldn't switch back. And now, as far as being chazan, the Rebbe told people not to make a machlekes about it. There is certain times where it says clearly when it was in Yanim and Halacha that there's a truth from the Tzemach Tzedek regarding Vishamru. Then when it comes to Vishamru, even when you're having a different kehila, we still say Vishamru. It's known that the Alter Rebbe
Still what?
that you still don't say Vishamru even if you're in a kehila that says Vishamru. So they have a machlekes about before.
Even for a chazan?
The Tzemach Tzedek writes even a chazan says it's known that the Chassidim Barditchev wouldn't say Vishamru. If I'm correct, I haven't looked at the Sheva of the Tzemach Tzedek recently, but when I remember, it says even when they're chazan. What's the big deal with Vishamru? There's a machlekes about whether you should say these extra psukim, which in a weekday would be the Bracha Baruch Shem Le'elam, and on Shabbos Vishamru. They consider a half stick ben Geula Tefillah. Chachamim say that you should say from Kol Yisrael until Shemona Esrei, there shouldn't be any hefsek. You should go straight from Kol Yisrael, straight to Shemona Esrei. Straight from Gola to Tefillah. Now, there's those who have a minute to say extra psukim in between. Is that a hefsek or not? So the Alter Rebbe holds a hefsek. Say a story before the Alter Rebbe printed a Siddur. The Berditchever, Rabbi Yitzchok Berditchever came to the Alter Rebbe. Told him, you should know when the Shomru was said in Shul on Shabbos, there's such a commotion in Shemayim. It's as big as a commotion as when it's the market day. The big shoot that happens and there's a whole commotion. That's the big commotion's like in Shemayim. So the Alter Rebbe said, don't have to go to every fair. The Alter Rebbe said, they'll still put in a Siddur. The Alter Rebbe put in a Siddur. But the Alter Rebbe also hinted to us not to say it. How does the Alter Rebbe tell us not to say it? He says, there's a few lines in the Siddur, there's a few lines without the Kudus. It says over there, there's a machlekes about whether you should say it or not because of Chash Hefsek. Those who don't say Baruch Hashem Ba'elam on the weekday because of a Hefsek, shouldn't say Vishamru on Shabbos either because of a Hefsek. If you look at the weekday Meir, the Alter Rebbe didn't put Baruch Hashem Ba'elam. So I know when it comes to Shabbos, I don't say Vishamru either. So the Alter Rebbe put it there, but we don't say it. When it came to one of the earlier rallies that the Rebbe made, there was Shabbos rallies, so they say the Frierdiker Rebbe was watching from the window. There were those who came to the Frierdiker Rebbe spending a lot of time watching a bunch of kids coming, and the Frierdiker was asked, what's the big deal over here? So he says, the Alter Rebbe said he doesn't go to every fair. This fair, the Alter Rebbe's here. So the Frierdiker was there. There was another story that said I tried looking for. I remember reading it a number of years ago, and I can't remember where I read it. There's a story I remember that there was a Yid who wasn't from a Lubavitcher family, and he switched. He became a Lubavitcher chassid. And Yechidus, he tells the Rebbe, there's a couple of points which he's a little uncomfortable with changing. One of them is that in Lubavitch we don't say Vishamru. I mean, he enjoys this part of davening very much. Second is that the eating before davening. He was always raised not eating before davening. So the Rebbe told him that the Vishamru, the Rebbe told him, you'll be my representative at the fair. And you continue to say Vishamru. Eating before davening, the Rebbe told him that really he has to eat before davening. Pashtus, start eating before davening. Pashtus was because if you would be careful with not eating before davening, what would end up happening was the Zavetis Tefillah would suffer. He would be looking at his clock during davening. So the Rebbe told him that he has to start eating before davening. There was he was davening once in 770. And
is the name involved there?
What?
Is the name involved?
I haven't read the story in a number of years. I don't remember her name.
Yeah.
There was one week he was davening at 770, and everyone didn't say Vishamru, and he forgot to daven together with everyone. Ma'ariv was over. When the Rebbe passed by, and the Rebbe told him, I didn't see you at the marketplace. I didn't see you at the fair.
Yeah.